in what insiders are already calling the most destabilizing financial controversy to hit the monarchy since the Windsor Trust Reform Act of 1952. Newly surfaced audit documents suggest that £2.7 million in royal trust funds were redirected to private accounts linked to Edoardo Mapelli Mazzi, husband of Princess Beatrice, without authorization from the Crown Finance Council. The revelation, first uncovered by Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, during a scheduled transparency review of Queen Elizabeth II's legacy funds, has ignited a storm inside Buckingham Palace and raised urgent questions about accountability, oversight, and potential criminal exposure within the royal financial network. This isn't a clerical anomaly, a senior financial advisor told the House of Windsor. It's a systemic breach, one that pierces the monarchy's own code of honor. According to internal ledgers examined by the investigation team, multiple transactions between April 2023 and July 2024 show funds, originally earmarked for cultural heritage preservation, being rerouted to an Italian development firm, Mapelli Mazzi Limited, headquartered in Rome, under project codes that auditors describe as non-traceable. At 42, Edoardo, known to the press as Edo, has long cultivated the image of the modern royal spouse. Oxford, educated, fluent in 4 languages, a property developer with holdings across Milan, Lake Como, and London. He is also a partner in Banda Property Group, a luxury real estate firm valued at nearly £480 million in 2024 assets. Since his 2020 marriage to Princess Beatrice, Edoardo has served informally as an advisor on international investment strategy to the extended royal household, often attending finance meetings alongside senior officials. His proximity to royal decision-making and his dual identity as both insider and private entrepreneur made him a bridge between the monarchy's tradition and its pursuit of modern relevance. That bridge, investigators now fear, may have become a conduit for misappropriation. Preliminary forensic analysis indicates that the suspicious transfers originated from the Windsor Heritage Preservation Fund, one of several charitable bodies restructured after Queen Elizabeth II's death in 2022. The transactions totaling £2,731,400 were logged under European Partnership Initiatives, a designation usually reserved for joint projects vetted by the Finance Council and approved by the reigning monarch. Yet no record of such approval exists. The funds traveled through 2 intermediary trusts before landing in an offshore account registered in Malta, where they were converted into euros and rechanneled into a holding account belonging to Mapelli Mazzi Limited. Investigators describe the trail as sophisticated but deliberate. Every transfer passed through legitimate systems, one audit source explained. The deception lay in how they were categorized, hidden in plain sight. Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, discovered the anomaly while conducting a post-coronation audit of dormant funds. At 54, the former public relations executive is renowned within palace circles for her meticulousness, a quality that has earned her both admiration and quiet fear. She first noticed an unfamiliar company name nestled among approved charitable payments. Cross-checking the data, she realized the recipient matched Edoardo Mapelli Mazzi's business entity. Protocol demanded every external transaction be co-signed by 2 finance counselors. Neither signature appeared. Sophie flagged the discrepancy to her advisor, Sir Henry Grayson, triggering an internal chain reaction that would eventually reach the king himself. Within weeks, a confidential review was launched under the code name Operation Ledger. For Buckingham Palace, the optics are devastating. After years spent rebuilding public trust following the Duke of York's 2019 scandal, the Crown has invested heavily in transparency reforms. The idea that royal relatives could again be entangled in alleged financial misconduct risks, undoing nearly half a decade of image repair. Public confidence in the monarchy's stewardship of its finances still buoyed at 71%. Approval earlier this year has already slipped to 64%. In the latest YouGov poll conducted 2 weeks after leaks of the audit findings, parliamentary voices are calling for external oversight. If taxpayer funds intersect with royal trusts in any capacity, said MP Eleanor Redmayne, then the same accountability laws must apply, whether the accused carries a title or not. For now, the palace has declined formal comment, citing ongoing internal processes, but within its marble halls, tension crackles. Insiders describe a divided household between those urging swift public transparency and those lobbying to contain the damage quietly, fearing a constitutional crisis if the allegations escalate. Who authorized the payments? And could such transfers occur without implicit approval from senior royal figures? Sources close to the investigation, hint that at least one high-ranking official signed provisional documents later removed from the record. Whether this omission points to oversight or orchestration remains unknown. As House of Windsor begins its 6-part investigation, the facts so far paint a portrait of an institution confronting its most uncomfortable mirror, a family sworn to honor, yet shadowed by the same temptations it was built to transcend. The next installment will trace the internal response, deleted emails, delayed audits, and the covert tug-of-war between the king's reformists and the queen consort's loyalists as the monarchy fights to protect its crown and its conscience. The first internal memo regarding Operation Ledger was stamped "Confidential for Council Eyes Only" and circulated at 7:42 a.m. on the 18th of October 2025. Within hours, senior courtiers were scrambling to suppress leaks. This must remain strictly internal. One directive read: no further correspondence outside encrypted channels. By nightfall, 2 digital audit files that originally contained transaction authorizations vanished from the royal intranet. IT forensics later confirmed the deletions occurred under an administrator code registered to Clarence House, the office of Queen Camilla. A palace source insists the deletions were routine archiving. Another, less forgiving, calls it erasure with intent. In the days following the discovery, 2 camps solidified within the royal household. The reformists, led quietly by King Charles III's private secretary, Sir Clive Alderton, and supported by Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, urged immediate disclosure to Parliament's Royal Finance Committee. Opposite them stood the Loyalists, an older guard centered around Queen Camilla's senior aides, who feared a public reckoning would destabilize the monarchy's fragile post-Elizabethan unity. Camilla believes transparency invites hysteria, a senior staffer told House of Windsor. She'd rather fix it quietly than let it feed the tabloids. According to internal minutes, the Loyalists proposed a compromise: reclassify the disputed £2.7 million as an experimental development loan and close the investigation under royal prerogative. Sophie refused to sign. A leaked cybersecurity report dated November 2 revealed that 14 emails between the Finance Council and Banda Properties Advisory Board were purged between September 10 and October 3, precisely the period in which unauthorized transfers occurred. Each message carried identical metadata tags: review, pending, divided by R12 funds. An anonymous palace IT officer told investigators, "The pattern is too precise for coincidence." Someone wanted those threads gone before the auditors reached them. Despite the missing files, fragments retrieved from cloud backups showed attachments listing E. Mapelli Mozzi Limited as a facilitator for cross-border investments in Rome and Milan, an arrangement lacking any royal sign-off. On October 25, in a windowless chamber known internally as the Vault Room, 8 senior advisors convened to decide the monarchy's course. Sophie presented her findings in a 30-page dossier. Queen Camilla's political secretary, Dame Helen Brown, countered with a 3-sentence brief: no evidence of malice. Proceed to internal correction. When Sophie refused to withdraw her recommendation for referral to external auditors, Brown adjourned the session. "The Duchess," she remarked coldly, "forgets her place in constitutional hierarchy." But Sophie's calm insistence, backed by Sir Reginald Hargrove, the retired finance chief, shifted the atmosphere. For the first time, whispers spread that the Duchess's diligence had exposed not only misconduct but the palace's own aversion to scrutiny. As rumors leaked to the press, crisis management experts estimated potential damage to royal credibility at £120 million in lost charitable donations and tourism revenue should the scandal widen. Palace accountants projected a 5–7% drop in annual grant income from sovereign estates if public trust wavered. Meanwhile, Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi remained publicly silent, continuing his property engagements in Milan. His spokesperson denied any knowledge of irregular transactions, calling the audit an internal misunderstanding. Behind the scenes, though, courtiers confirmed the Italian businessman had been temporarily barred from attending Finance Council sessions, an unprecedented sanction for a royal in-law. Sources close to King Charles describe him as anguished but resolute. The monarch, who has long championed ethical reform within the royal household, reportedly told advisors, "If honor demands exposure, so be it. The crown must be cleaner than the scepter that holds it." Yet public disclosure risks igniting a constitutional storm, particularly if evidence points toward negligence within his own inner circle. Thus, the king authorized a dual-track inquiry, one internal under palace comptroller oversight, and one external, quietly contracted to the National Audit Office, under strict confidentiality. For now, both operate in secrecy. 2 investigations shadowing each other like mirrors, neither permitted to speak aloud. The cover-up, intentional or not, has already inflicted collateral damage. Every vanishing file, every deflected question deepens suspicion that the monarchy still struggles to reconcile heritage with transparency. If they hide truth to protect the throne, writes analyst Daniel Merrick, they may instead erode the faith that keeps the throne standing. The palace insists calm prevails. Insiders know better. In its private halls, loyalty now feels less like devotion and more like delay. Coming next, the confrontation between two royal women, one defending secrecy in the name of stability, the other wielding integrity as her only weapon. Because in Buckingham Palace, truth is never lost. It is only waiting for the right person to stop hiding it. By early November 2025, Buckingham Palace no longer felt like a palace. It felt like a courtroom. The audit office's once calm sanctuaries of ledgers and ceremony buzzed with whispered alliances. Every corridor carried a question. Would the crown choose transparency or survival? At the center of the storm stood two women. Queen Camilla, pragmatic, proud, determined to preserve stability at all costs, and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, relentless, principled, unwilling to sacrifice truth for convenience. It wasn't open hostility, recalled a senior advisor. It was faith versus fear. Their first direct clash occurred on 7 November, during a closed Finance Council briefing. Camilla entered late, diamond brooch flashing beneath the chandeliers, her presence commanding immediate silence. Sophie sat opposite, a stack of reports before her, marked in blue ink the colors she used for unresolved truths. Camilla began softly. "Your Grace, we must remember what the public needs is confidence, not chaos." Sophie replied evenly. "Confidence built on omission isn't confidence, it's illusion." A pause. Then Camilla leaned forward. "Do you understand what will happen if this becomes public? To the king, to the institution? Do you understand what happens if it doesn't?" Sophie answered. Witnesses say the silence that followed felt heavier than judgment. Behind that exchange unfolded a series of tactical maneuvers worthy of Westminster. Camilla's office began lobbying sympathetic courtiers to sign a joint memorandum, calling for an internal resolution. Within days, 12 signatures appeared. Sophie responded not with speeches but evidence, commissioning a fresh audit through the National Audit Office liaison already assisting Operation Ledger. Her team traced £1.9 million in unaccounted assets across shell companies in Malta and Gibraltar. Each trail returned to one familiar name, E. Mapelli Mazzi Limited. "The numbers didn't lie," said a financial analyst. "Only the people handling them did." The audit, still unofficial, transformed whispers into a full-blown constitutional dilemma. King Charles III, aware of the mounting tension, summoned both women to a private meeting at Highgrove. According to a palace source, he spoke little but listened long. His only directive was chilling in its simplicity. Do what honor requires. To Camilla, that meant protecting the crown from scandal. To Sophie, it meant protecting the crown from corruption. The king, perhaps knowingly, had issued a test neither could win without wounding the other. On 11 November, the first hint of the scandal reached the press. A brief column in The Observer citing unexplained irregularities within royal financial reports. The palace called it speculative nonsense. Behind closed doors, Camilla's temper reportedly ignited. "Find the leak," she ordered. Security teams combed staff phones and email logs. Suspicion fell on Sophie's aides, though no proof emerged. Within hours, Camilla's press secretary issued a statement reaffirming Her Majesty's full confidence in the integrity of royal operations. The move backfired. Online forums erupted with the hashtag number Palace Papers, demanding answers. Public opinion shifted. 52% of respondents now supported an independent inquiry. Those closest to Camilla describe her as exhausted but unbending. She believed she was defending not deception, but duty. Sophie, by contrast, grew calmer. The more she was cornered, her resolve sharpening like glass. Late one evening, as staff departed the West Wing, the two women crossed paths in the marble hall. No words, only a nod, half acknowledgement, half declaration. "It was like watching tradition and truth pass each other on the stairs," said a witness. Within the royal press office, strategists debated issuing a preemptive confession, framing the incident as administrative oversight. Camilla vetoed it. Sophie insisted that concealment was impossible. Forensic evidence would soon surface anyway. By mid-November, the internal probe had ballooned into over 400 pages of documentation, 27 banking correspondences, and 6 classified memos implicating multiple mid-level officials. 2 resignations followed. The Crown's attempt at containment was crumbling from within. The battle between the Queen Consort and the Duchess is not a feud of ego, it is a collision of ideologies. Camilla represents the old guard. Protect the crown at all costs. Sophie embodies the new. Preserve the crown by telling the truth. As one observer wrote, one woman shields the throne with silence. The other shields it with courage. Either way, the crown bleeds. M4. By mid-November 2025, the palace investigation had crossed from suspicion to proof. Forensic auditors traced £2.7 million in diverted royal funds through a network of shell corporations registered in Malta, Gibraltar, and Rome. Each pathway converged on a single destination, E. Mapelli Mazzi Limited, listed under Edoardo Mapelli Mazzi's signature as sole beneficiary. The transactions, executed in tranches of £450 000 £600 000, were disguised as European Cultural Infrastructure Grants. No corresponding projects existed. No charitable recipients were found. It was precision theft, said an investigator. Too clean, too structured for error. A spreadsheet recovered from a deleted backup contained internal notes marked R12 Rome Development Series. Auditors discovered that R12 matched a closed royal account created during the late Queen's reign for heritage site maintenance, an account dormant since 2019. Emails extracted from Edoardo's Italian consultancy revealed coded exchanges with a Milan-based broker using the alias Falco. The broker's real identity, Luca Benedetti, had previously been implicated in a 2021 EU tax avoidance probe. The correspondence outlined a profit-sharing model disguised as performance bonuses. In practice, it moved royal trust funds into offshore investments in high-end property along Via Condotti and Lake Como, later resold at a premium. When questioned by auditors, Edoardo denied any wrongdoing. "My firm merely facilitated modernization strategies," he said. "I serve the crown's interests." Yet records showed no contracts, no oversight, and no reimbursement to the royal trust. Inside Royal Lodge Windsor, Princess Beatrice struggled to reconcile loyalty and dread. Friends recall her insisting her husband was being targeted by jealous courtiers. Eyman does not. But late one evening, she opened a drawer in his study and found a folder stamped Royal Finance Council seal beneath it, signed copies of the same transfer agreements circulating in the investigation. Her hands shook, says a household aide. She didn't want to believe the man she defended was the leak in the crown. Beatrice confronted him the next morning. He deflected. "It's paperwork, B. A temporary proxy." Still, the signature was there, bold and final. Simultaneously, Italian regulators cooperating with the UK National Audit Office produced authenticated banking slips, confirming the final transfer. €850 000 wired to a private fund in Rome. Reference line, R12 asset renewal. The evidence was irrefutable. Within 24 hours, the Palace Legal Division notified the Crown's solicitor. A preliminary report cited breach of fiduciary duty, misuse of royal funds, and potential fraud under Section 4 of the Crown Finance Charter, 2017. Penalties for such an offense could include revocation of royal appointments and referral for civil prosecution, a historic first for a member by marriage of the royal family. When the audit dossier reached Buckingham Palace, senior officials demanded an emergency session. Witnesses describe an atmosphere thick with disbelief. Camilla's advisors urged containment. Sophie insisted on disclosure. "We cannot preach accountability while burying the evidence," she told the room. King Charles listened in silence, then signed an order authorizing cooperation with the Serious Fraud Office, SFO. It was the first royal-endorsed criminal referral in nearly a century. Edoardo was notified that his access to royal financial counsels was suspended indefinitely pending investigation. He declined comment, but instructed his lawyers to contest the findings as misinterpreted entrepreneurial activity. That night, in Windsor's lamplit library, Beatrice penned a brief letter to Sophie. "If honor demands truth, let it be told. Protect the family. Do what I could not." The next morning, she surrendered copies of the incriminating documents to the palace comptroller, an act of cooperation that effectively ended her husband's defense. Court insiders described it as the moment silence broke. Edoardo Mapelli Mazzi's fall is not merely a scandal of greed. It is a revelation of the monarchy's fragile evolution. In trying to modernize its wealth, the institution opened its gates to the very vulnerabilities it once rose above. For years, the crown's strength lay in its mystery, notes constitutional scholar Dr. Harold Kent. Now it will be measured by its transparency. The palace remains officially silent, but inside its walls, loyalty has become a currency far costlier than gold. On a gray December morning, the east wing of Buckingham Palace transformed into a courtroom in everything but name. Heavy drapes muffled the sound of London beyond the gates. Inside, beneath portraits of past sovereigns, 10 members of the Royal Finance Council took their seats for a proceeding officially classified as Internal Disciplinary Review. At 9:03 am, Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi entered. The man once hailed as the monarchy's modern visionary now looked hollowed charcoal suit immaculate, expression brittle. Across the table sat Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, her files neatly stacked, a single fountain pen placed parallel to the page. Princess Beatrice arrived last, pale but composed, and took her place 2 chairs away from her husband. "This is not a court of law," the chair declared, "but a court of conscience." Sophie rose first. She presented a 47-page dossier labeled Operation Ledger, Final Findings. Her voice was calm, surgical. Each page projected onto the oak-paneled wall. Line items, dates, banking routes, digital signatures. Funds belonging to the Windsor Heritage Preservation Fund were diverted through external channels with no authorization from this body, she said. The transfers bear the signature of Mr. Mapelli Mozzi as sole beneficiary. The council murmured. She continued, outlining the missing £2. 7 million, the €850,000 wire to Rome, and the coded emails with Falco. Her evidence concluded with a short sentence that silenced the room. Honor requires transparency. Silence protects only guilt. Edoardo stood, adjusting his cufflinks as if the gesture might restore control. "I acted in good faith," he began. "These were investments designed to ensure the monarchy's financial independence, a modern vision misunderstood by its custodians. He dismissed the accusations as administrative chaos turned into a witch hunt. When asked directly if he had profited personally, he hesitated half a beat too long. "I advanced the Crown's interests," he said finally. Sophie's reply cut clean. "By enriching yourself?" Gasps rippled through the chamber. The chair called for decorum. For 30 minutes, Beatrice sat motionless, hands folded in her lap. Then she rose. Her voice trembled, only once. "I defended my husband because I believed the honor of this family was his honor too," she said. "But the documents I found prove otherwise." She placed a single envelope on the table, the original contract bearing his signature. The council examined it, the seal, the ink, the handwriting, all genuine. Edoardo stared at it as though the paper itself had betrayed him. "B," he whispered. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," she replied. After a recess, the council returned. The chair read the ruling aloud. "All royal appointments and advisory privileges held by Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi are revoked. He is referred to the Serious Fraud Office for external investigation under the Crown Finance Charter. Princess Beatrice is exonerated of complicity." No applause, no outrage, only the faint tick of the palace clock. Edoardo exhaled sharply, head bowed. The Queen Consort, absent from proceedings, issued a statement hours later, calling the findings a painful but necessary reckoning. That evening, Sophie returned to her Kensington Palace office. She wrote 3 lines in her notebook. "Accountability is not cruelty. Truth is not treason. The Crown endures only when it kneels to honesty." Outside, reporters clustered at the gates, flashes piercing the winter fog. The palace declined interviews, confirming only that internal measures have concluded. Inside the walls, staff whispered a new title for her, the Duchess of Discipline. For a monarchy defined by discretion, the tribunal was unprecedented. It signaled that the Crown's survival now depends not on secrecy, but on self-correction. "They chose exposure over erosion," noted political analyst Dr. Harold Kent. "For once, the palace did not protect the guilty, it protected the principal." The scandal's cost is already quantifiable. £14 million, estimated in legal and reputational damage, 2 senior resignations, and a 12% drop in royal favorability. Yet behind those numbers lies something less measurable, a shift from dynasty to accountability. The day after the tribunal, Buckingham Palace was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the hollow stillness of the aftermath. Staff moved through the gilded corridors like ghosts in livery. The world outside, however, roared. Newspapers across Britain carried the headline, "Royal Finances in Turmoil, R. Yingban. 7 million embezzlement confirmed." For the first time in decades, the palace's statement bore the tone of contrition, not command. The Crown acknowledges a grave failure of oversight and has taken measures to ensure such breaches can never recur. The monarchy had judged its own. Now it had to survive the judgment of its people. Within a fortnight, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, was appointed head of royal financial oversight, a position newly created by the king himself. Her first decree, the Transparency Mandate of 2026, established quarterly public reports of royal expenditure and independent audits by the National Audit Office. "No more velvet shadows," she said in a brief address. Light is the only protection worth trusting. The reforms were sweeping. All charitable and private funds were merged into a unified royal integrity portfolio. External consultants were barred from managing heritage grants. Family members by marriage were prohibited from handling or advising on financial matters. Critics hailed the mandate as the quiet revolution of a duchess. Even skeptics conceded that Sophie had achieved what Parliament had long failed to impose: true accountability within the monarchy. While Sophie rose, Princess Beatrice withdrew. Within days of the verdict, she vacated Royal Lodge with her daughter, retreating to a modest family estate in North Yorkshire. No press statements, no public appearances, only a single letter released through her spokesperson. "I remain loyal to my family and my country. My duty now is silence." Those close to her say she spends mornings walking along the moors, away from the noise of scandal. She carries both shame and relief, one friend shared. She lost a husband but kept her honor. Public sentiment towards her softened. A poll taken in January 2026 showed 78% of Britons viewed Beatrice as a victim of circumstance, not conspiracy. In the court of public opinion, compassion had replaced condemnation. For King Charles III, the scandal carved deep but necessary scars. Privately, aides say he regards the episode as a cleansing by fire. He has since implemented the Charter of Royal Conduct, binding all family members to standards equivalent to civil service law. In a rare televised address on New Year's Day 2026, the king spoke plainly. The monarchy must belong to integrity as surely as it belongs to tradition. The scepter is not a shield for the unworthy. It is a reminder that service, not privilege, defines our calling. The speech, viewed by 42 million people worldwide, restored a measure of trust that months of damage control could not. Editorials called it the most candid royal address since George VI. Sophie's reputation now stands as paradoxical, beloved yet feared. She is said to begin each day reviewing every ledger herself, refusing staff intermediaries. Her motto, engraved discreetly above her office doorway at Windsor: integrity before inheritance. Though critics accuse her of austere perfectionism, insiders describe her differently, not cold, but anchored. "She's the monarch's conscience in human form," one senior aide remarked. The king reportedly consults her before every major financial decision. Some whisper that if monarchy has a moral compass, it now points due Sophie. The £2.7 million scandal will forever mark a turning point. It stripped away illusion, exposed fragility, and paradoxically renewed faith in the institution's ability to confront its own sins. What fell was secrecy, wrote political historian Lydia Carr. What rose was stewardship. The cost, £14 million in legal and reputational losses, 2 resignations at senior rank, 1 marriage shattered, but also a restructured monarchy, a strengthened public bond, and a duchess whose quiet resolve rewrote royal ethics. On a late winter evening, Sophie walked alone through the restored finance wing of Buckingham Palace. She paused beneath Queen Elizabeth II's portrait, the monarch who had once embodied restraint and now, through legacy, rebirth. In the reflection of the glass frame, Sophie caught her own silhouette beside the late queen's. 2 women, 2 eras, united by duty. "Discipline is mercy," she murmured. "Truth is the only crown that lasts." Outside, the lamps along the mall glowed gold against the frost. The monarchy, battered but breathing, endured forged, not in secrecy, but in light.